Shooters are typically my bread and butter. Doom, Wolfenstein, Call of Duty, Battlefield. What's been scratching that itch for me has been Apex, and Apex is cool from time to time, but I've been growing bored with it. For me, it's been lacking content. I know that sounds stupid considering, it gets new seasons, it gets new legends, and, the maps change or whatever, but I'm just tired of the typical battle royale experience. I wanted something different, something new, and more often than not, in times like this when there's nothing new, the alternative is to go back and revisit some previous masterpieces or games that you just enjoyed in the past. And in this particular case, I decided to revisit Respawn's previous masterpiece, Titanfall 2. And it was a little different this time around because I opted to play it on PC with a mouse and keyboard, which is completely different from my previous experiences with this game because I was strictly a console player. And let me tell you, the transition was actually mind-blowing. I had no idea that Titanfall 2 can feel so incredibly satisfying in terms of movement and gunplay. There's no restrictions in the fluidity. Even after 6 or 7 years since its release, the combination of fluid movement and precise shooting mechanics remains top tier. I would even say Respawn nearly perfected it in this game. If there was any reservations about its potential and how perfect Respawn nailed the system, I would say all those reservations would confidently be thrown out the window with Titanfall 3, if that ever came to fruition. I'd even liken Respawn's mastery of the movement and gunplay in Titanfall 2 to how Rocksteady perfected the combat system in the Arkham games. Perhaps not as intricately complex as the Arkham games' combat style, but the way Respawn handles it gives off a sense of unparalleled authenticity, similar to Rocksteady's combat. How sure you have games like Spider-Man, the Middle-earth games, Mad Max that have similar combat styles, but they don't feel as fluid and as buttery smooth as those Arkham games. Any other game with that type of combat just feels like they're trying to replicate it. But the seamless flow between gunplay and movement isn't just what sets Titanfall 2 apart. It's, yes, astonishing how even on the game's hardest difficulty, mastering the art of movement renders most encounters laughably easy. The key lies in staying one step ahead, using your mobility to outmaneuver opponents before taking the shot. It's a delicate dance, and once you synchronize your movements with your shooting, nothing can pose a threat. But beyond the exceptional gameplay mechanics on foot, Titanfall 2 shines in 2 other areas: storytelling and the endearing banter between the pilot and BT, the Titan you control. And the reason why the narrative is so good is because Respawn, at least for me, I've always seen it like this. I've always seen Respawn as Call of Duty developers, and I've never thought too highly of COD campaigns. Sure, some of them are better than others. Some of them are much more memorable, without a doubt, but at the end of the day, all of them are meant for you to just revel in the chaos and the destruction. It's fast-paced, it's frenetic, full balls to the wall. The narratives themselves, at least over time, have slowly started to dwindle, and it seems like it's gotten to a point where the campaigns are just ultimately there. The teams that are working on those games are almost incapable of creating compelling narratives. Now, there's multiple factors why that might be, but that's what I'm saying on the surface. When you just look at a Call of Duty game, that's what comes to mind over time. And with Titanfall 2, it's kind of the same thing. It's all fast-paced, frenetic. You can poke some holes in the narrative, sure, but the fact that it was their first real story, considering the original Titanfall did not have a campaign, and you're coming from a team on the surface that isn't really known for narratives, when you take the little interactions and banter between BT and the pilot that you control, it means much more because now you're actually invested in it. At times, BT feels like a person, and then little metaphors or gimmicks, sayings are answered by him in a very literal sense, kind of reminding you that he's just a machine. And the campaign is actually incredibly short. If you were to run through it, you can finish it in about 5 hours. Yet, in those 5 hours, Respawn manages to establish a connection between you, BT, establish the world building, get everyone up to speed on what exactly a pilot is versus the rifleman that Pilot Cooper, the guy you play as in the game, starts up as, to where he's at the end of the game, where BT actually even vouches for him and requests that he's actually his permanent pilot when the two of them were going to be separated. So a lot of it is actually accomplished in a few short hours. Or it could also be the fact that we weren't really expecting that much of anything, and the fact that people's expectations were so damn low that it blew everyone out of the water. That's also a possibility. But even replaying the game, for me, the parts that stuck out the most are gameplay wise, the fluidity and the combination between movement and gunplay, but also you got the time traveling missions, the fact you can cloak, come up behind enemies, perform an execution, jump in and out of time, which I wish was more of a permanent thing rather than something that was tied to a specific level. The fact you can jump in and out of BT practically whenever you want. Which brings me to the next point, the Titan gameplay. Multiple loadouts, different ways to dispatch enemies. You have defenses, you have offensive maneuvers. There's so much in such a short campaign, and the saddest thing about it is ultimately it's just a taste of everything the multiplayer had to offer, yet because of the servers and everything going on, I don't even think multiplayer is playable anymore. I could be entirely wrong. I couldn't find a match, so after multiple attempts, I frankly gave up. But the narrative at times strikes a perfect balance between humor and heartfelt moments. Apex Legends, like I was saying at the beginning of the video, successfully carried over some of the gameplay fundamentals as well as some aspects of the rich world and lore of the Titanfall series if you went out of your way and went to go look for it. However, no matter how great Apex Legends fundamentally might be, it can't fill the void left behind the absence of another Titanfall game. We're all too familiar with the unfortunate fate that befell Titanfall 2. Released between the juggernauts of Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, two long-standing franchises that already dominated the market, Titanfall 2 faced an uphill battle. And as the second installment in the series, it had to overcome the challenges posed by its predecessor. The first Titanfall lacked a campaign, leaving players wanting for more of a complete experience. It felt like it offered half of a game. Additionally, it was only on Xbox and PC, limiting its reach and having to prove itself against well-established rivals. Recently, I also came across an interesting article featuring an interview with Vince Zampella, the president of Respawn Entertainment, where he discussed the possibility of a third installment in the Titanfall series. Actually, let me rephrase that. He was asked about it, and he expressed his personal interest in seeing the game come to life. His approach to the topic was cautious and unwilling to make any definitive promises, to say it very bluntly. His exact quote reads, "I hate to say yes, then people would latch onto that and then skewer you when it doesn't come. But I would love to see it happen," is the real answer. There are no exact dedicated plans for that. His response reflects a delicate balance between fan expectations and the unpredictable nature of game development, or in this case working with EA. Recognizing the potential backlash that can arise from unfulfilled promises, he remains cautious in his statements, understandably so. Nonetheless, his genuine desire to bring Titanfall 3 into existence shines through, highlighting his personal passion for the franchise and Respawn continuing to innovate in the FPS genre. Zampella's openness to the idea offers a glimmer of hope to everyone eagerly waiting, hoping, and praying for the next chapter in the beloved Titanfall series.